Hey, this is Johnny Cox. Welcome to part 3 in my series of videos about playing chords on the bass. In this video we're going to look at playing triads on the bass. Now triads are just simple 3-note chords, but they form the foundation of so much harmony that it's really important to understand them before we move on. So a triad is made up of a root, a third and a fifth. That's a root note, a note that's an interval of a third above that note, which is the third, and then an interval which is again a third above that, which is the fifth. So we've got major thirds and we've got minor thirds, so it gives us the possibility of playing 4 different types of triads. So a major triad is a major third and then a minor third. A minor triad is a minor third and then a major third. A diminished triad is 2 minor thirds stacked together, and an augmented triad is 2 major thirds stacked together. So that's example 1. Major triad, minor triad, diminished triad, augmented triad. So again, that's C major, C minor, C diminished, and C augmented. So we can use these triads to harmonize scales, and if we take a major scale and harmonize it into triads, then we end up with 7 different chords. 3 major chords, 3 minor chords, and 1 diminished chord. So as an example, I'm going to harmonize a G major scale into triads. So chord 1 is major, G major, chord 2 is minor, A minor, chord 3 is minor, B minor, chord 4 is major, C major, chord 5 is major, D major, chord 6 is minor, E minor, then chord 7 is diminished, F sharp diminished in this case, and then we're back to chord 1, G major again. So you'll find that every time you harmonize a major scale into triads, you get that exact same pattern. Chord 1 is major, chord 2 minor, chord 3 minor, chord 4 and chord 5 are both major, chord 6 is minor, and chord 7 is diminished. Okay? So that gives us 7 chords to play in any key that we're in. Now so far we've looked at just what we call root position triads. That's where you harmonize with the root at the bottom, then the third, and then the fifth, stacked neatly in intervals of a third, one on top of the other. But we can rearrange these triads to put either the third or the fifth at the bottom, and that gives us what we call an inversion. So there's 2 different types of inversion, one with the third at the bottom and one with the fifth at the bottom. So in this case we're using a root note of G, so it gives us a G major triad in the first inversion, which could be written as G over B. Then we'd have a G minor triad in the first inversion, which could be written as G minor over B flat. Then we have a G diminished triad in the first inversion, and a G augmented triad in the first inversion. And you can see that that augmented triad looks pretty much the same whether you play it in the first inversion or if you play it in the root position, or even if you play it in the second inversion. The reason being that it's what I like to think of as a symmetrical chord. It's got 3 notes in it, G, B and E flat, and you get exactly the same notes if you play a G augmented triad as if you play a B augmented triad or as if you play an E flat augmented triad. It's just the same 3 notes for each chord, G, B and E flat. So in example 4, I'm going to demonstrate how to play triads in the second inversion, and this time I'm using a root note of F. So we can harmonize scales using inverted triads, just like we harmonize scales using our root position triads. And even though we're using inverted triads, it still doesn't change that pattern of major and minor chords. So example 5 is an E major scale harmonized into first inversion triads. An example 6 is a D major scale harmonized into triads in the second inversion. The pattern of major and minor triads stays exactly the same. For any major scale that you harmonize, you're always going to get 3 major chords, chord 1, chord 4 and chord 5, 3 minor chords, chord 2, chord 3 and chord 6, and 1 diminished chord, which will be chord 7. So in this final example, I'm going to use the melodic minor scale again. So if you've seen either of my previous 2 videos in this series about playing chords on the bass, you'll know that I like to use this melodic minor as an example at the end, because it gives us a different sound and a different set of chords. So I'm going to use a G melodic minor scale, and you'll notice that the pattern is different here. We get 2 minor chords, 2 major chords, 2 diminished chords, and 1 augmented chord. So chord 1 and chord 2 are both minor, chord 3 is augmented, chords 4 and chord 5 are major, and then chord 6 and chord 7 are diminished. So here's a G melodic minor scale harmonized into root position triads. So we get a G minor triad, an A minor triad, chord 3 is this augmented triad, B flat augmented, C major, D major, E diminished, F sharp diminished, and then finally we're back to G minor, chord 1 again. So in part 4 we're going to go on to look at chord extensions. This is when you can add notes to triads to make extended harmony, and this is when the chords start to sound really, really interesting. So check that out if you haven't already.